As the sun begins, the pack of wilds launches into a life-or-death chase. With flawless coordination and astonishing speed, they create a hunt so intense that the entire savanna seems to hold its breath. This is a story of unity, discipline, and survival instinct at its very highest level. By splitting into smaller groups to surround and cut off escape routes with careful calculation, the pack of wild dogs completely neutralizes the prey's advantage in speed. This seamless coordination not only drains the target's strength with ruthless efficiency, but also highlights the overwhelming power of disciplined teamwork against the desperate bursts of a lone runner. If wild dogs represent discipline and speed, then the hyena stands as the embodiment of brute strength and ruthless cunning, armed with jaws powerful enough to crush bone. The hyena is the ultimate opportunistic raider, always ready to snatch victory from the hard work of others. When these two predators collide, it becomes far more than a fight over a carcass. It's a fiery showdown between agile pack strategy and raw, relentless toughness. Out on the unforgiving savanna, only one side can truly dominate the game in this no mercy. Out on the open savanna, the African wild dog pack locks onto a newborn buffalo calf as its next target, exploiting the calf's fragility and a fleeting lapse in the mother's guard. They apply relentless pressure, working methodically to isolate the vulnerable young. Though the mother fights back in desperation, the suffocating force of so many coordinated predators gradually overwhelms her defense. It is a harsh reminder of nature's unforgiving law, where a life that has only just begun can be confronted by death within moments. Of 21 wild dogs closes in, relying on sheer numbers and iron discipline to separate the mother buffalo from her calf. Despite the mother's frantic and fearless defense, the pack's relentless wear-down strategy steadily drains the young calf's strength. In the end, the calf collapses under the brutal collective pressure of the coordinated hunters, bringing a tragic chapter of the survival struggle to its inevitable close. Dust, the chase suddenly turns into a fiery close-quarters clash. The lone hyena relies on sheer muscle as its shield, launching furious counterattacks against the wild dog's unpredictable hit-and-run tactics. But the overwhelming force of numbers quickly tightens the circle, forcing the stubborn fighter to retreat in fear and flee to save its life. The once peaceful waterhole suddenly erupts into chaos as two of the savanna's fiercest forces collide hyenas and wild dogs. Driven by thirst and the lure of an easy meal, the area transforms into a fiery battleground filled with menacing growls and thunderous snapping jaws. While the wild dogs show the sun begins to rise, wild dogs watch the beast, a stubborn giant with a powerful build and razor-sharp horns, is always a formidable challenge on the savanna, thanks to its strong survival the entire savanna. Yet even that raw power can be disciplined when it encounters one of nature's greatest tactical hunters, the African wild dog, its very highest level. What follows is a clash between brute strength and relentless strategy. On one side stands a lone powerhouse with seamless coordination and perfectly timed strategic bites. The pack of wild dogs ultimately brings the massive wildebeest under complete control. Overwhelmed by their blistering speed and a relentless encirclement that leaves no escape, the giant soon begins to tire. In the end, with frightening persistence, the pack of wild dogs relentlessly pursues the antelope, draining its strength along a deadly path of exhaustion. Despite its impressive size and power, the prey ultimately collapses under the relentless layers of pressure, slowly becoming trapped in a tightening maze. Turning itself into a living fortress, the antelope unleashes thunderous back kicks and swings its razor-sharp horns to drive away every wave of attack. Against this solid wall of defense, the pack of wild dogs, despite their frantic attempts to surround and overwhelm, finds themselves completely powerless. By splitting into smaller groups to surround and cut off escape routes with careful calculation, the pack of wild dogs completely neutralizes the prey's advantage in speed. This seamless coordination not only drains the target's strength with ruthless efficiency, but also highlights the overwhelming power of disciplined teamwork against the desperate bursts of a lone runner. Leopard decides to become one advantage of a moment, taking advantage. One begins to rise the wild dog, a stubborn giant with a powerful build and razor-sharp horns, is always a formidable challenge on the savanna hunt, thanks to its strong survival instincts. Yet even that raw power can be tested when it encounters one of nature's greatest tactical hunters, the African wild dog, Leopard. What follows is a clash between brute strength and relentless strategy. On one side stands a lone powerhouse capable of charging through danger, while on the other is a disciplined with seamless coordination and perfectly timed strategic bites. The pack of wild dogs ultimately brings the massive wildebeest under complete control. Overwhelmed by their blistering speed and a relentless encirclement that leaves no escape, the giant soon begins to tire. In the end, the powerful grazer collapses, defeated by the brutal efficiency and collective strength of these highly skilled predators. Under the relentless layers of pressure, slowly becoming trapped in a tightening maze of hunters with no escape in sight. Turning itself into a living fortress, the antelope unleashes thunderous back kicks and swings its razor-sharp horns to drive away every wave of attack. Against this solid wall of defense, the pack of wild dogs, despite their frantic attempts to surround and overwhelm, finds themselves completely powerless. The hunt stalls in a tense deadlock, where the prey's sheer resilience manages to hold off the relentless strategy of the pack. By splitting into smaller groups to surround and cut off escape routes with careful calculation, the pack of wild dogs completely neutralizes the prey's advantage in speed. This seamless coordination not only drains the target's strength with ruthless efficiency, but also highlights the overwhelming power of disciplined teamwork against the desperate bursts of a lone runner. The zebra is a symbol of speed marked by its iconic stripes and armed with a devastating rear kick capable of delivering lethal force. Although the dogs rely on relentless pursuit, a zebra can still force them to retreat with well-timed crushing kicks. The zebra strikes fear into the wild dog pack by boldly counterattacking with thunderous rear kicks and savage bites. Its sheer aggression shatters the encirclement, forcing the relentless predators to scatter and pull back. At the water's edge, as a pack of wild dogs closes in to kill a helpless antelope, a zebra suddenly charges in to intervene. Using its powerful body and crushing kicks, the zebra drives the predators back in a dramatic confrontation. In Londolozi, the wild dog pack is seen simultaneously chasing a zebra while aggressively stealing a kill from a leopard. Overwhelmed by sheer numbers and relentless pressure, the leopard is forced to retreat and surrender its prey. Along the forest edge, a fierce pack of wild dogs surges forward aggressively, driving a herd of zebras out of the territory. Faced with the predator's determination, the zebras choose to pull back and avoid a deadly confrontation. Beneath the scorching sun of the blazing savanna, the wild dogs move in like silent gray phantoms, spreading fear through the zebra herd. The thunder of hooves shatters the stillness as a breathless chase unfolds between survival and death. The rhinoceros is the armored tank of the savanna, built like a fortress and armed with a razor-sharp horn that radiates raw power, despite its overwhelming strength. Even this giant occasionally draws the attention of a cunning pack of African wild dogs. In these rare encounters, the pack relies on harassment tactics, circling relentlessly, probing for any sign of weakness. Yet a single thunderous charge or a forceful snort from the rhino is often The footage captures a dramatic reversal of roles when the cunning leopard decides to become the hunter instead of the one hiding. Taking advantage of a moment when the wild dogs are busy enjoying their late lunch, the leopard bursts out of the bushes like an arrow, using its terrifying speed and raw power to shock the pack. Caught completely off guard by the sudden aggression of the spotted assassin, the wild dog scatters. Surrounded by the aggressive pack of wild dogs barking loudly to intimidate it, the leopard quickly relies on its natural climbing ability to escape. In a split second, it bursts upward and races straight to the top of a towering tree, leaving the large group of frustrated opponents leaping helplessly below. fierce circle of wild dogs closing in. The leopard doesn't choose to fight to the death, but instead displays its masterful escape skills. With one powerful surge of its body, it shoots straight up the vertical trunk of the tree, leaving behind the desperate barking and the pack's helpless leaps below. On the open plains of the Okavango, a leopard has just taken down its prey when it suddenly finds itself facing a pack of aggressive wild dogs. Instead of backing off before the lone predator's power, the dogs move in with perfect coordination, using sharp, piercing barks and constant snapping bites to surround and overwhelm their rival. Realizing the numbers are heavily against it, the leopard has no choice but to abandon the fresh kill and retreat up a nearby. In a blood-soaked hunt, a pack of African wild dogs demonstrates the unforgiving power of pack discipline as they bring down a warthog, exploiting their speed and coordination. Dozens of relentless hunters deliver repeated, precision bites to the flanks and underbelly, draining their prey's strength with every passing second. Though the warthog fights back fiercely, slashing with his sharp tusks in a final stand, he cannot withstand the overwhelming numbers and the pack's calculated encirclement. Within moments, he collapses, and the takedown is completed with swift, merciless efficiency. The warthog, a battle-hardened fighter armed with razor-sharp tusks, faces a life-or-death trial after falling into the encirclement of an elite pack of wild dogs. A suffocating clash of instincts unfolds, pitting fearless defiance against some of the most disciplined pack tactics on the African continent. Can the warthog's sheer grit and resilience tear through the snapping jaws of the savanna's ghosts and carve out one final chance at survival? Coordination and perfectly timed, strategic bite. The pack of wild dogs ultimately brings the massive wildebeest under complete control. Overwhelmed by their blistering speed and a relentless encirclement that leaves no escape, the giant soon begins to tire. In the end, the powerful grazer collapses, defeated by the brutal efficiency and collective. At the mouth of the burrow, the wild dogs patiently lay siege, tightening their formation around the fighter holding his ground in the shadows. With razor-sharp tusks aimed straight at his enemies, the warthog suddenly explodes forward in a thunderous burst of speed, tearing through the encirclement and making a breathtaking escape, leaving the stunned pack scrambling in disbelief. Turning itself into a living fortress, the antelope unleashes thunderous back kicks and swings its razor-sharp horns to drive away every wave of attack. Against this solid wall of defense, the pack of wild dogs, despite their frantic attempts to surround and overwhelm, finds themselves completely powerless. The hunt stalls in a tense deadlock, where the prey's beneath the harsh blaze of the savanna sun, the wild dog's encirclement seals off every last escape for the warthog. Overwhelmed by the pack's ruthless, coordinated assault, the battered fighter finally collapses, surrendering to the savage tearing of relentless jaws. It is a tragic yet unflinching reflection of nature's unforgiving law of survival. If wild dogs represent discipline and speed, then the hyena stands as the embodiment of brute strength and ruthless cunning, armed with jaws powerful enough to crush bone. The hyena is the ultimate opportunistic raider, always ready to snatch victory from the hard work of others. When these two predators collide, it becomes far more than a fight over a carcass. It's a fiery showdown between agile packs. Out on the open savanna, the African wild dog pack locks onto a newborn buffalo calf as its next target, exploiting the calf's fragility and a fleeting lapse in the mother's guard. They apply relentless pressure, working methodically to isolate the vulnerable young. Though the mother fights back in desperation, the suffocating force of so many coordinated predators threatens. Hares are true sprinting athletes built with powerful spring-loaded legs that let them pivot sharply at speeds of up to 70 kilometers per hour. In a life-or-death showdown with African wild dogs, the most relentless predators of the wild, the hare relies not only on speed, but on sharp instinct and strategy. It launches into dramatic zigzag leaps, switching directions in an instant, forcing even the most seasoned pack hunters to struggle to keep up through those brutal high-speed turns. On one side stands the tireless endurance of the pack. On the other, explosive agility and split-second reflexes together, creating a heart-stopping chase where speed becomes the razor-thin line between life and death. In Simba Valley, young wild dogs reveal their killer instincts early as they work together to surround a hare. Even though they are not yet fully grown, they move with surprising coordination, bringing the prey down and turning the hunt into a dramatic real-life lesson in survival. Across a forest blanketed in white snow, a dramatic chase unfolds between a pack of wild dogs and a fleeing hare. Against the frozen backdrop, the relentless hunters move in perfect coordination, closing in on the small prey as it darts and swerves in a desperate fight for survival. Beneath the dry brush, a lightning-fast hunt ends in the raw brutality of instinct. The moment the hare is caught, the pack shows no hesitation. Each wild dog lunges in immediately. Driven by collective force, they pull in opposite directions, and within seconds, the small prey is torn apart. Right on the asphalt roads of Kruger, a pack of wild dogs puts its ruthless coordination on full display as it corners a hare. In a flash, the killers surge forward together, yanking the prey in different directions and bringing the hunt to a brutal end in just a matter of seconds. Rhinoceros is the armored tank of the savannah, built like a fortress and armed with a razor-sharp horn that radiates raw power, despite its overwhelming strength. Even this giant occasionally draws the attention of a cunning pack of African wild dogs. In these rare encounters, the pack relies on harassment tactics, circling relentlessly, probing for any sign of weakness. Yet a single thunderous charge or a forceful snort from the rhino is often enough to send the smaller predators scattering. The clash is a striking contrast brute. Muscular dominance on one side, calculated agility and opportunism on the The footage captures a dramatic reversal of roles when the cunning leopard decides to become the hunter instead of the one hiding. Taking advantage of a moment when the wild dogs are busy enjoying their late lunch, the leopard bursts out of the bushes like an arrow, using its terrifying speed and raw power to shock the pack. Caught completely off guard by the sudden aggression of the spotted assassin. Surrounded by the aggressive pack of wild dogs barking loudly to intimidate it, the leopard quickly relies on its natural climbing ability to escape. In a split second, it bursts upward and races straight to the top of a towering tree, leaving the large group of frustrated opponents leaping helplessly below. With the fierce circle of wild dogs closing in, the leopard doesn't choose to fight to the death, but instead displays its masterful escape skills. With one powerful surge of its body, it shoots straight up the vertical trunk of a tree, leaving behind the desperate barking and the pack's helpless leaps below. On the open plains of the Okavango, a leopard has just taken down its prey when it suddenly finds itself facing a pack of aggressive wild dogs. Instead of backing off before the lone predator's power, the dogs move in with perfect coordination, using sharp, piercing barks and constant snapping bites to surround and overwhelm their rival. Realizing the numbers are heavily against it, the leopard has no choice but to abandon the fresh kill and retreat up a nearby tree. In Moremi, the African wild dog pack moves with seamless coordination, using calculated slicing bites to separate a calf from the protective shield of its mother. And although the mother buffalo charges in fury, unleashing every ounce of her strength to drive them back, the pack's relentless multi-directional siege slowly exhausts the young one until it collapses, bringing the confrontation to a tragic end, as the heartbroken mother is forced to retreat into the water in a final attempt to secure her own safety. The rhinoceros is the armored tank of the savannah, built like a fortress and armed with a razor-sharp horn that radiates raw power, despite its overwhelming strength. Even this giant occasionally draws the attention of a cunning pack of African wild dogs. In these rare encounters, the pack relies on harassment tactics, circling relentlessly, probing for any sign of weakness. Yet a single thunderous charge or a forceful snort from the rhino is often enough to send the smaller predators scattering. The clash is a striking contrast brute. Muscular dominance on one side, calculated agility and opportunism on the other, an intense standoff where even a coordinated pack struggles to shake this living fortress. There's a dramatic reversal of roles when the cunning leopard decides to become the hunter instead of the one hiding. Taking advantage of a moment when the wild dogs are busy enjoying their late lunch, the leopard bursts out of the bushes like an arrow, using its terrifying speed and raw power to shock the pack. Caught completely off guard by the sudden aggression of the spotted assassin, the wild dogs scatter in confusion. Abandoning the prey they had just hunted, they rush after the leopard, but the clever predator surrounded by the aggressive pack of wild dogs barking loudly to intimidate it. The leopard quickly relies on its natural climbing ability to escape. In a split second, it bursts upward and races straight to the top of a towering tree, leaving the large group of frustrated opponents leaping helplessly below. the pack closes in and finally brings the waterbuck down through seamless coordination and relentless pressure. Rather than ending the struggle immediately, they pace the kill strategically, preserving the resource to sustain the entire pack amid the constant threat of competing predators nearby. Despite fighting to her very last breath, the waterbuck ultimately succumbs to the persistence and calculated brutality of some of the savanna's most elite hunters. On the open plains of the Okavango, a leopard has just taken down its prey when it suddenly finds itself facing a pack of aggressive wild dogs. Instead of backing off before the lone predator's power, the dogs move in with perfect coordination, using sharp, piercing barks and constant snapping bites to surround and overwhelm their rival. Realizing the numbers are heavily against it, the leopard has no choice but to abandon the fresh kill and If the African wild dog represents discipline, then the hyena is the embodiment of brute force and cunning. Armed with bone-crushing jaws, the hyena stands as a lifelong rival, always ready to steal the hard-earned prize of the pack. Their encounters are not just fights over a carcass, but explosive clashes between coordinated strategy and terrifying resilience. Let's see which predator will truly dominate the savanna in this showdown. Along the damp riverbank, an unthinkable scene unfolds. A lion suddenly steps in to rescue a pregnant hyena from the tightening circle of wild dogs. As the exhausted hyena is relentlessly attacked by the aggressive pack, the arrival of the king of beasts completely shifts the balance of power. It may not have been an act of mercy, but the lion's intervention becomes an unexpected shield, allowing the hyena to escape death by mere inches. This is no longer a routine chase. Both sides collide head-on, trading bites and swipes like a full-blown boxing match. In the swirling dust, the pack relies on speed and agility to harass and overwhelm, while the lone hyena braces itself, absorbing the assault and striking back with raw, muscular power. In the end, fear takes over, and the hyena breaks away, scrambling to find an escape. Surrounded by a cloud of dust and hemmed in on all sides, the lone hyena fights back fiercely against snapping jaws coming from every direction. Under the suffocating pressure of overwhelming numbers, it has no choice but to retreat, plunging into the water in a desperate bid for one last chance at survival. Along the riverbank, the wild dog pack has just wrapped up a dramatic chase, bringing down a young antelope right in the water. But their victory is short-lived as the commotion draws in the true professionals of theft, the hyenas. A fierce battle over the carcass erupts in the rushing current, turning the scene into pure chaos, filled with snarls and white spray exploding in every direction. One side fights to defend the hard-earned reward of teamwork, while the other unleashes brute force to seize it, laying bare the unforgiving laws of survival in the wild. In the end, the hyena clan overpowers the pack and claims the kill. At a quiet waterhole on the edge of the forest, a fierce confrontation erupts between the savanna's two most notorious gangs, the hyenas and the wild dogs. Drawn together by thirst and the promise of a meal, the watering hole quickly transforms into an arena of growls and thunderous bites. The wild dogs rely on speed and coordinated encirclement, while the hyenas stand their ground, using sheer brute strength as their shield. At the Simbambili Game Reserve, a fight over a rotting carcass quickly escalates into an all-out battle. The wild dog pack deploys speed and seamless coordination to encircle their rivals, while the hyenas fire back with brute force and their chilling, taunting laughter. The air grows thick with snarls and thunderous snaps, laying bare the sheer brutality that unfolds when two top predators clash face to face. If wild dogs represent discipline and speed, then the hyena stands as the embodiment of brute strength and ruthless cunning, armed with jaws powerful enough to crush bone. The hyena is the ultimate opportunistic raider, always ready to snatch victory from the After discovering that a leopard has killed one of their young, the wild dogs unleash a wave of ruthless fury. Overwhelmed by the pack's relentless encirclement and sheer numbers, the solitary predator is forced into a fearful retreat, vanishing into the thick brush in a desperate bid to escape. Confronted by a suffocating ring and the pack's relentless group assault, the leopard makes a narrow and fortunate escape. Though completely outnumbered, it seizes a split-second advantage in the terrain to launch a life-saving burst of speed. In the heart of the chaotic ring, the leopard unleashes a lightning-fast bite, instantly crippling one wild dog in a single decisive strike. Even as thunderous barks erupt and the rest of the pack lunges in a frantic attempt to rescue their fallen comrade, the solitary predator does not waver. With terrifying strength and unyielding resolve, the leopard fights off the surrounding assaults while clamping down with lethal force, reasserting its status as one of the wild's most formidable assassins. Trapped within the tightening circle of wild dogs, the lone hyena twists and turns, struggling to fend off lightning-fast attacks coming from every direction. Thick clouds of dust blur the scene, but they cannot hide the brutality of snapping jaws tearing at flesh. Realizing the crushing pressure of the pack is slowly draining its last hope, the hyena makes a life-or-death decision, break through the encirclement, and dive straight into the deep water, gambling on one final chance of survival. The leopard, a solitary assassin with unmatched stealth, is forced to tread carefully in the face of the African wild dog's iron discipline. This is a life-or-death encounter, pitting extraordinary individual prowess against the devastating force of coordinated pack tactics. It is a brutal test. Can solitary brilliance withstand a relentless assault with no gaps, no mercy, and no escape? The footage captures a dramatic reversal of roles when the cunning leopard decides to become the hunter instead of the one hiding. Taking advantage of a moment when the wild dogs are busy enjoying their late lunch, the leopard bursts out of the bushes like an arrow, using its terrifying speed and raw power to shock the pack. Caught completely off guard by the sudden aggression of the spotted assassin, the wild dogs scatter in confusion. Abandoning the prey they had just hunted, they run. 'Caught. 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 ' faced with the fierce circle of wild dogs closing in. The leopard doesn't choose to fight to the death, but instead displays its masterful escape skills. With one powerful surge of its body, it shoots straight up the vertical trunk of a tree, leaving behind the desperate barking and the pack's helpless leaps below. On the open plains of the Okavango, a leopard has just taken down its prey when it suddenly finds itself facing a pack of aggressive wild dogs. Instead of backing off before the lone predator's power, the dogs move in with perfect coordination, using sharp, piercing barks and constant snapping bites to surround and overwhelm their rival. Realizing the numbers are heavily against it, the leopard has no choice but to abandon the fresh kill and retreat underneath. Elephants are truly the uncrowned kings of the savannah, possessing both remarkable intelligence and overwhelming physical power. Encounters between them and African wild dogs unfold like a tense symphony of survival. While the pack may rely on bold numbers and harassment tactics to test smaller or vulnerable individuals, the matriarch responds with absolute authority. With ears spread wide and a thunderous trumpet, the giant charges forward, swinging her muscular trunk and pounding the ground with earth. By splitting into smaller groups to surround and cut off escape routes with careful calculation, the pack of wild dogs completely neutralizes the prey's advantage in speed. This seamless coordination not only drains the target's strength with ruthless efficiency, but also highlights the overwhelming power of disciplined teamwork against the desperate bursts of a lone runner. Wild dogs represent discipline and speed. Then the hyena stands as the embodiment of brute strength and ruthless cunning, armed with jaws powerful enough to crush bone. The hyena is the ultimate opportunistic raider, always ready to snatch victory from the hard work of others. When these two predators collide, it becomes far more than a fight over a carcass. It's a fiery showdown between agile pack strategy and raw, relentless toughness. Out on the unforgiving savannah, only one side can truly dominate the game in this no-mercy battle. A pack of 21 wild dogs closes in, relying on sheer numbers and iron discipline to separate the mother buffalo from her calf. Despite the mother's frantic and fearless defense, the pack's relentless wear-down strategy steadily drains the young calf's strength. In the end, the calf collapses under the brutal collective pressure of the coordinated hunters, bringing a tragic chapter of the survival struggle to its inevitable close. Amid a cloud of dust, the chase suddenly turns into a fiery close-quarters clash. The lone hyena relies on sheer muscle as its shield, launching furious counterattacks against the wild dog's unpredictable hit-and-run tactics. But the The warthog stands as a stubborn fighter of the grasslands, armed with sharp tusks and an unyielding fighting spirit. Yet that resilience is pushed to its ultimate test when a pack of African wild dogs, disciplined and relentless hunters, launches a brutal siege. What unfolds is a tense showdown between the warthog's solitary aggression and the pack's cunning collective strategy, where the line between life and death is separated by only a heartbeat. Across the cracked and sun-scorched savanna, a solitary warthog finds itself in grave peril as a pack of wild dogs steadily tightens its circle of fate. Amid swirling dust and blistering heat, the cunning predators seal off every possible escape route, forcing the warthog into a desperate life-or-death struggle against the raw brutality of nature. Beneath the blazing savanna sky, the warthog is driven into a final dead end as the pack of wild dogs tightens its fatal grip. Their ruthless encirclement strategy severs every last hope of escape, turning the struggle for survival into a brutal tragedy under the relentless assault of these highly disciplined killers. On the parched plains, the pack of wild dogs moves in seamless coordination to encircle and drain the strength of a solitary warthog. Relentless bites from multiple angles steadily neutralize every attempt at resistance, leaving the prey utterly trapped with no path to escape. Surrounded by the unforgiving hunters, the once defiant warrior of the savanna can now do little more than cling to life in fading desperation. If wild dogs represent discipline and speed, then the hyena stands as the embodiment of brute strength and ruthless cunning, armed with jaws powerful enough to crush bone. The hyena is the ultimate opportunistic raider, always ready to snatch victory from the hard work of others. When these two predators collide, it becomes far more than a fight over a carcass. It's a fiery showdown between agile pack strategy. Out on the open savanna, the African wild dog pack locks onto a newborn buffalo calf as its next target, exploiting the calf's fragility and a fleeting lapse in the mother's guard. They apply relentless pressure, working methodically to isolate the vulnerable young. Though the mother fights back in desperation, the suffocating force of so many coordinated predators gradually overwhelms her. 15. A pack of 21 wild dogs closes in, relying on sheer numbers and iron discipline to separate the mother buffalo from her calf. Despite the mother's frantic and fearless defense, the pack's relentless wear-down strategy steadily drains the young calf's strength. In the end, the calf collapses under the brutal collective pressure of the coordinated hunters, bringing a tragedy. Amid a cloud of dust, the chase suddenly turns into a fiery close-quarters clash. The lone hyena relies on sheer muscle as its shield, launching furious counterattacks against the wild dog's unpredictable hit-and-run tactics. But the overwhelming force of numbers quickly tightens the circle, forcing the stubborn fighter to retreat in fear and flee to save its life. Within the tightening circle of wild dogs, the lone hyena twists and turns, struggling to fend off lightning-fast attacks coming from every direction. Thick clouds of dust blur the scene, but they cannot hide the brutality of snapping jaws tearing at flesh. Realizing the crushing pressure of the pack is slowly draining its last hope. The hyena makes a life-or-death decision to break through the encirclement and dive straight into the deep water, gambling on one final chance. If wild dogs represent discipline and speed, then the hyena stands as the embodiment of brute strength and ruthless cunning, armed with jaws powerful enough to crush bone. The hyena is the ultimate opportunistic raider, always ready to snatch victory from the hard work of others. When these two predators collide, it becomes far more than a fight over a carcass. It's a fiery on the open savanna. The African wild dog pack locks onto a newborn buffalo calf as its next target, exploiting the calf's fragility and a fleeting lapse in the mother's guard. They apply relentless pressure, working methodically to isolate the vulnerable young. Though the mother fights back in desperation, the suffocating force of so many coordinated predators gradually A pack of 21 wild dogs closes in, relying on sheer numbers and iron discipline to separate the mother buffalo from her calf. Despite the mother's frantic and fearless defense, the pack's relentless wear-down strategy steadily drains the young calf's strength. In the end, the calf collapses under the brutal collective pressure of the coordinated hunters, bringing a tragic chapter of the survival struggle to its inevitable close. Within the tightening circle of wild dogs, the lone hyena twists and turns, struggling to fend off lightning-fast attacks coming from every direction. Thick clouds of dust blur the scene, but they cannot hide the brutality of snapping jaws tearing at flesh. Realizing the crushing pressure of the pack is slowly draining. The once peaceful waterhole suddenly erupts into chaos as two of the savanna's fiercest forces collide hyenas and wild dogs. Driven by thirst and the lure of an easy meal, the area transforms into a fiery battleground filled with menacing growls and thunderous snapping jaws. While the wild dogs showcase their hit-and-run tactics, using speed to tear through their opponent's formation, the Warthog is the savanna's stubborn brawler, armed with razor-sharp tusks and a fearless, defiant nature. But that courage is pushed to its absolute limit when it falls into the sights of an African wild dog pack ruthless ghosts of the plains that bring down prey through relentless siege tactics. A heart-pounding battle of wits unfolds. Can the Warthog's tough, bristled armor save it from the jaws of the most disciplined hunters on the African continent? The wild dog pack fans out and tightens the noose, trapping the Warthog amid clouds of savanna dust. The striped killers take turns striking and retreating, wearing their target down and forcing it into desperate, exhausting maneuvers. Face to face with death, the Warthog lashes out wildly with its razor-sharp tusks, refusing to surrender to the ferocity of the relentless pack. wild dogs seal off the burrow's entrance patiently, waiting for the warthog, the stubborn fighter, to emerge from the darkness. Inside, the warthog backs deeper into the den, bracing its razor-sharp tusks outward like a living shield in a final stand. Then, in a flash of speed and instinct, it bursts free from the burrow, escaping in a move that leaves the pack momentarily stunned. At the waterhole, the warthog is driven into complete desperation as the wild dogs close in for the final encirclement. With every escape route cut off, the stubborn fighter is ultimately overwhelmed, falling into the ruthless jaws of nature's most coordinated pack hunters. Under the scorching sun of the parched savanna, a lone warthog is pushed into a deadly corner as the wild dog pack tightens its lethal ring. Amid searing heat and swirling dust, the striped predators cut off every possible escape, turning the warthog's struggle for survival into a desperate last stand against relentless jaws and claws. The wild dog pack closes in repeatedly using harassment tactics to provoke their opponent, while the crocodile remains ominously still, displaying its deadly jaws. It is a nerve-wracking battle of wits between land-based special forces and a waterborne assassin unfolding right at the edge of survival. Across the parched savanna, the wild dog pack executes its brutal siege, with cold precision tightening the circle around the helpless warthog step by step. Striking in relentless rotation from every direction, they drain its strength and extinguish any hope of escape until the animal is left barely breathing beneath the unyielding pressure of its enemies. Hyenas are relentless predators with bone-crushing jaws, always ready to use their powerful build to steal kills from other species. As long-standing rivals of African wild dogs, they spark fierce clashes between raw brute force and refined pack tactics. While a lone hyena can be terrifying, it still must think twice when faced with the seamless coordination and blistering speed of a wild dog pack. Traffic grinds to a halt as a fierce battle erupts between a pack of wild dogs and a group of hyenas right in the middle of the roadway. Both sides charge into a violent clash over territory and prey, creating a scene of pure chaos as growls and barking echo across the area. A fierce melee breaks out between a wild dog pack and a hyena along a rocky riverbank. Using the open terrain to their advantage, the dogs repeatedly surround their opponent, launching hit-and-run attacks from multiple directions. Despite the hyena's superior muscle strength and crushing jaws, it struggles to cope with the intense encirclement and the dog's well-timed razor-sharp bites. The wild dog pack launches a coordinated assault on a lone hyena along the rocky riverbank. Relying on the numerical advantage, they constantly close in and deliver sharp, well-placed bites from behind, forcing the hyena to struggle desperately just to defend itself. Capitalizing on their numbers and agility, the wild dog pack repeatedly delivers quick slicing bites from multiple angles, forcing the hyena into a defensive position. Despite its larger frame and immensely powerful jaws, the relentless pressure and sophisticated encirclement tactics leave the hyena fighting in sheer desperation just to stay alive. Relying on their numerical advantage, the pack works together to surround the target repeatedly, striking with dangerous bites from behind to wear it down. Despite its superior size, the hyena struggles to cope, resorting to a defensive crouch to shield its hindquarters as it fights to withstand the relentless pressure from all sides. The once peaceful waterhole suddenly erupts into chaos as two of the savanna's fiercest forces collide hyenas and wild dogs. Driven by thirst and the lure of an easy meal, the area transforms into a fiery battleground filled with menacing growls and thunderous snapping jaws. While the wild dogs showcase their hit-and-run tactics, using speed to tear through their opponent's formation, the hyenas stand their ground like a wall of brute force, relying on raw